Welcome to Connection. My name is Bilitis and I'm pleased to be your host on Connection. If you're new to Connection, well, what to expect? You should expect to meet individuals who are inspired to do their best and to inspire greatness for themselves, but as well for their community. So if you're new to Connection or you start to like it, I invite you to subscribe and turn on the notification button. Like this, each time there is a new episode, you're the first one to know about it. Today, I'm pleased to introduce you to my new special guest, Dr. Rikin Patel. Dr. Rikin is actually a pediatrician. He has a special interest in empowering young leaders through character development. Based on over 30 years of studying Shaolin Kung Fu and the ancient wisdom text of yoga. Please welcome Dr. Rikin Patel. Hi, how are you doing, Dr.
Hey,
Rikin?
Bilitis, how are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for accepting to be here with us today and taking some time away of what's going on as well for you at the hospital. So busy over there in Toronto, Canada.
Yeah, no, thank you so much again for having me. It's a great opportunity. I really enjoy what you've been doing, and I look forward to seeing more interviews in the future. So thanks for this endeavor. I think it's a great one.
Yeah, most welcome. Thank you so much, Rikin, for already following Connection. And so, Rikin, tell us more about yourself.
So a little bit about myself. I grew up, so most of you know where Toronto is, and I grew up in a small town called Waterloo. It's an hour outside of Toronto, and Waterloo is known for a couple of things in the world. First of all, it has a really famous university for engineering and mathematics where Bill Gates has traveled often to in the past to recruit. And the second is, if you've ever had or have a BlackBerry phone, the headquarters for BlackBerry is in Waterloo. So just a couple of fun facts. I have two very loving parents. My dad is a pharmacist, and my mom is someone who I'd call a super mom. She raised myself and my younger sister. She took care of the house, and she helped my father with her business. And growing up, I was a really big sports fan, as I still am, and I played basketball, tennis, and I did Kung Fu. Now, while I still would take the opportunity to play basketball and tennis, the activity that's really stuck with me over the years is Shaolin Kung Fu, and I've been doing that now it's been almost 32 years.
Wow.
And while I've been blessed with many gifts, I wouldn't consider myself necessarily a smart person. And what I mean by that is, in high school, there were 5 of us that were kind of the better or the top students. And I always knew that I was the bottom of those 5 students. And so many times now I tell people I was always the bottom of an elite pack. So it's all relative. And it was something that I embraced. And it was really good for me because what it did was it really kept my feet on the ground. It helped me strive to be better because there were always people better than me. And it really cultivated, which I feel is my greatest strength, which is my work ethic. So, and that goes into kind of the single greatest event or learning that I impacted my life, which is the rejection that I got from medical school in my last year of university. Now, it's a long story to get into, but I had many reasons to feel confident about getting in. And I go back and I think about that day like it was yesterday. I remember the clothes that I was wearing. I remember the TV show I was watching while I was waiting for the mail to come in. And for those of us that have applied to medical school, we know that on that day you're getting the mail. If you get a big envelope, you got in. And so I was waiting for that big envelope, and to my surprise, I got the small envelope. And I got turned down, and my whole life, my whole world changed. I genuinely was not expecting it. And it felt like someone had taken something out of me. I felt this emptiness that I'd never felt before. And so it really changed my whole life. Now, most people know that going into something like medical school is really competitive. So most people have a backup plan. But at that time, I had no backup plan at all. So I had such few options. And at that time, a mentor of mine, he had done a master's program in the UK. So I was just trying to find some opportunity at that time. So I literally scrambled an application together. The summer before the fall, the program starting, I applied, and lo and behold, I literally fell into this amazing program that I did my master's in health policy at the London School of Economics. And most of my friends had all applied the year before to get into this program. And I really feel it was my calling at the time, because it was such an amazing life experience. I was in a class with people who had scholarships, prestigious scholarships like the Marshall Scholarship, government scholarships from the countries they were from around the world. At the time, then at that time US presidential candidate's daughter was in our class. And there were even doctors who I was trying to be like. They were in my program, and they were using this master's to leave medicine. I remember that year I got to travel around Europe, Spain, Prague, Switzerland, France, Belgium. And from traveling these different countries, I learned so much about the different cultures, different foods, different languages. I remember that year I was able to hear Nelson Mandela speak in Trafalgar Square. And I was really fortunate enough that year, as a Canadian, I was invited to Buckingham Palace. And so I got to meet the Queen, who I must say is a very nice lady. And it was funny because all my British friends at the time, they were saying, we've lived in the UK and London our whole life, and we've never gotten an invitation to Buckingham Palace. So anyways, it was a funny joke at the time. But what I was most grateful for at the time was it was that year it was really, I would say, like a start to my spiritual journey. I met a group of friends who really inspired me back to the path of yoga my mom had introduced me to as a child. It's called Bhakti Yoga, and I've been practicing it since then. And you can imagine my family, they were shocked at the changes I made in my life that year. And so it was just such a tremendous experience. I learned so much about life, myself, and I grew in so many different ways. And so after that year in London, I tried to get back into medical school, like close to home, but I didn't again. So then life took me at that time to Grenada, where I started medical school. Such a beautiful part of the world if you haven't been. And so for me, when I wasn't studying, I learned how to scuba dive. So that's how I spent a lot of my free time out there, and it was beautiful.
In the Caribbean.
In the Caribbean, yeah. So from there, my last 2 years of medical school was in New York. And New York was such a tremendous experience because I chose a different experience. I moved in with friends of mine who were monks in a monastery. And it was incredible life experience, not only learning about their lives, but trying to live their lives. It really revolutionized my whole life. And so then after that, I moved to Newfoundland in St. John's, where I did 4 years of my pediatric training, my residency. So that's the training you do after medical school to specialize.
In Canada?
Yeah, that's in Canada. It's on the very eastern part of Canada, the most eastern part of Canada. And it was such an amazing group of people on that side of the world. I learned so much from them. But again, an experience filled, like many people would know, in residency, filled with a lot of challenges, a lot of failures. But it was, again, incredible. And then from there, I moved again to Ottawa, where I spent another year learning more about specifically palliative care for children. Now, as you can imagine, it was a tremendously rewarding experience, but it was also emotionally very challenging. Now, Ottawa is very unique because it also led to a life-transforming event where there I experienced burnout. And I really had to rebuild myself from scratch when I was there. You know, there were many things going on in my life at then, different pressures that I hadn't been exposed to. I'd been studying for now a good 8 years straight without any long, break. And I remember my coach at the time, who was, who was previously a monk, he told me, he said, like when a computer crashes, you need new software and hardware. So he, told me, he says, you're at a stage in your life where you need completely new hardware and software by which to approach and view the world. And so it kind of stuck with me because it really was a time in my life that was a low, but I had to really dig deep. And that's actually when I came into contact with Robin and a lot of his teachings, was during that time, during the rebuild, and it was tremendously helpful at that time. So
Robin
that's just
Sharma.
a little bit about myself.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Rikin. Yes, it has been like a short trailer of a long time event, and thank you so much for letting us in on who was Rikin before and what were the challenges that you faced, and another thing as well that jumped on my mind is like, yeah, you actually, because you are very young, Dr. Rikin, and you were saying like over 32 years of Kung Fu Shaolin Kung Fu, and I'm like, wow, you started right away when you were born.
Yeah, pretty much. I started when I was 7, so
Wow.
that it's been with me. It's been a great companion throughout my childhood, teen years, university, and throughout.
Yeah, it must have had as well an influence, a big influence on you, and a difference in your growth compared to other kids as well. And actually, who is Dr. Rikin now, today? What are you up to?
Okay, so now what I'm doing, as you know and you mentioned, I'm working as a general pediatrician in Toronto, and so I will have both an office and I work in the hospital. And just to give you a little flavor what a day at the hospital looks like on call, I am running to deliveries for newborn babies that need help when there's complications. We're taking care of premature babies in our neonatal intensive care unit that sometimes are there for weeks to months because they're born early. I'd be going to the emergency to see kids that have come to the emergency, and then if we have to keep in the hospital, I'm also involved taking care of those kids that get admitted to our ward. So that's what my work life looks like.
Mm-hmm.
But based on my lifestyle choices and the experiences that I have, particularly that one in Ottawa, my big interest and focus right now has been trying to shift medical culture by promoting wellness and resiliency. So I feel a real calling to help my fellow colleagues, because I feel that as a group of doctors and physicians, if we can make changes in our own life, that this eventually can trickle down to our patients, and we can also have more of an impact on our patients as well, and it can impact them, and then hopefully, society as a whole. And one of the things that I'm doing right now is at the University of Toronto, as an assistant professor, I'm involved. I'm the physician lead for the medical school's resilience curriculum, and so that's a curriculum now that's been in place. It's still fairly new, but teaching the younger generation of to-be doctors on how they can integrate new habits and mindsets into their life now that we never had when I was going through. So I'm involved in helping other doctors facilitate the sessions and training them on how to deliver the curriculum. And so in addition to that, I'm also trying to work at different levels of an institution, level of the residents and the staff doctors, also to see how we can make changes to improve the work environment and the culture. And one of the things that's really exciting, if you look at the United States, they have now what's called C-suite position dedicated, like a chief wellness officer dedicated to managing the overall wellness and resilience initiatives for an entire institution. So we're actively trying to bring position like that to the University of Toronto. So I'm excited to see that happening and trying to get involved in bringing that forward. And also from my, just from my lifestyle changes, but, most people I would say will now identify that one of the single biggest interventions we can make in our life to preventing disease, but also curing illness that we have, is paying attention to the food we put in our mouth. And so for myself, when I was back in London, I went plant-based back then. And so for me, what I'm really trying to do right now, just recently, I was asked to speak on a virtual panel at a vegan vegetarian food festival. I was specifically talking about how we can bring in plant-based diets in a healthy way to children. But I'm continually educating not only my work colleagues about this, but also the families that I deal with in the office about how we can make nutritional changes towards more of a plant-based diet to improve our health. And then finally, a big part of every day for me goes into my own personal practice and my personal well-being. So what that looks like is I meditate for 2 hours a day. I'm always trying to read and connect with ancient wisdom texts from yoga. And I'm regularly trying to keep up my yoga and my Kung Fu practice. So I'm really fortunate right now. I'm studying with a 34th generation Shaolin monk here in Toronto.
Wow. And it seems as well you have some huge capacities on time management.
Somewhat.
It seems like, Dr. Rikin, with all that you have explained to us, it seems like you have a huge capacity of time management as well.
Well, I'm very grateful that at this stage of my life, I have good health and energy. So I'm really trying to not only take advantage of that energy by staying busy and active, but also I now, ever since my experience in Ottawa, I have a much better sense of what I need to do to also preserve and maintain my energy.
Because as well, it is about what you shared right now, but it's as well like your community. So tell us more about how you are involved with your community.
Right. So my community, a lot of my community involvement is based around the yoga community that I've been a part of for now many years, and I really feel that we can. One thing that I'm really passionate about is how we can take the ancient wisdom that are present in so many variety of traditions, and how we can make that relevant for modern times. So one of the things that I do is I specifically do workshops for teens and university students on how we can take ancient wisdom and we can make them relevant for modern times. So for example, workshops on how we can unleash our talents based on understanding our personality types, talking about principles of determination, even talking about universal life principles for success. The other thing I do is I like to have discussion groups around specifically character development and integrity-based leadership. So I try to do that with not only with people at my stage in life, but specifically the younger generation of people. And the other thing that I am actively doing is 2 years ago, I started a not-for-profit that's part of a bigger not-for-profit called Kirtan Globe, but it's specifically Kirtan Toronto. And that's specifically what Kirtan is it's meditation with music. And so many people may know about the practice of mantra meditation, but a mantra you can think of as a sacred sound formula that helps still our mind and help control our mind. And they have a tremendous impact not only on our mind and body, but specifically at the level of our consciousness as well. So we're actively trying to bring this type of meditation practice to the general public here in Toronto. And there's other cities that have, there's a Kirtan London, and there's other cities with the same brand that we're all part of in different parts of the world. So we're all working together to try to give this what we know is such a powerful tool to make it more relatable and people that can take it up. And a lot of people through their practice of yoga end up coming through in touch with this specific type of practice of meditation and yoga. And then finally, I'm still part of the same Kung Fu school that I started out as when I was 7 years old. So right now, because I go see my parents at home, I'm still actively part of that school, and I'm still teaching at that school as well. So I still take time to teach as part of that community.
Wow. And does your teacher, like when you were 7, you still practicing, or maybe one of your teachers that you were with?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting. It was also a life-changing experience. Was my teacher who I trained with when I was 7. Unfortunately, in 2005, he suddenly had passed away, and one of my closest friends that I grew up with, he was a chartered accountant. I'm inspired by him to this day. He took over the school so it could continue on. So that's why I feel in a lot of ways I'm trying to help him still keep alive what our teacher gave us.
Yes, and keep alive the spirit.
Yes.
I love that. And actually, Dr. Rikin, how is your future looking like? What would you like?
Oh, the future. There's so many ideas that we'd like to do, but one of the, just in terms of my career in medicine, I definitely see in the future probably doing less clinical work and shifting more into the space of trying to promote wellness and resiliency. And I see this being done either both as a leader in either a medical school at a university or a hospital, and through coaching physicians and other types of executives specifically in the area of wellness and resilience. So I really would like to see a shift perhaps in that direction more so in the future. So I'm building experience right now. Recently, over a year ago, I went to India specifically to get training to formally become a yoga teacher. And I'm looking to bring not only did I benefit myself tremendously, but I'm looking to bring a lot of the learning and the benefit into the healthcare setting, specifically for nurses and doctors, because I think there's a lot that we can learn and apply specifically in our work and day-to-day setting to help the work environment be a better place to work in. I also feel that there's a huge scope for bringing in the principles of yoga and meditation to our younger generation of children, where I'm seeing personally myself, they're struggling so much with the conditions around mental health and just dealing with their minds. So I think there's a lot that we can take from there that I'm hoping to bring perhaps into that type of work setting from things that I'm working on now and I've learned in the past. And since I was in medical school, everyone was always curious about what I was eating, right? And even one person it's a running, comment at every stage of my life, but in medical school, one of my friends, his nickname for me was Picnic. because everywhere I went, I was always traveling with food. Whether it would be we were studying in some part of the school, the library. I was always feeding my friends in the library. And so I'm just making that joke right now because I'm always trying to educate my colleagues too on plant-based food, plant-based nutrition. And I think, again, there's still great potential to bring this to children, to younger children. So right now I'm actively trying to position myself as a plant-based nutrition to formally help more children dealing with conditions right now that are really prevalent, like obesity, high blood pressure, things of that nature, specifically by helping change their diet. So those are just some of the things that I hope to, hope to move into and grow in the future.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your vision. And as well, yeah, as you were mentioning, for the children, it's true that they face difficulty mentally, but as well, sometimes more the time passes, and more they have a deficiency in attention. They are less and less focused, and we call it deficiency span. It's more and more reduced, and they need examples, they need support. And talking about example, well, what would be your 3 messages that you wanted to share with us today?
Well, thanks so much. That's a great question, and I really like how you've been asking all the people who've spoken about just what's inspiring them and what they'd like to share. The first message I would like to share is just something that's very personal to me, and it's something that comes from a quote from a mentor of mine who's a monk, and there's this quote that really drives my whole vision for what I'm trying to do in life. And he says that the greatest act of compassion we can have in this world is to be a good example for others to follow. And I really think that this strengthens and gives integrity to our message, because when I read this quote, it really involves us that if we want to help people, we have to take the medicine ourselves first, and we have to do the work on ourselves first. So I think, and the reason why that inspires me is because this quote really brings us to the point where we're leading from inside out, right? So we're doing, whatever we're trying to bring to this world, we're trying to apply it to ourselves first. Like Gandhi, his famous quote, be the change we want to see in this world. So that's the first message that I'd want to share with everyone, is that we can bring compassion by being that good example for others. And that starts first with, trying to work on ourselves. The second message that I wanted to share with everyone is how we can increase our impact. Now, for me, from all the mentors that I've, observed and learned from, the single best way that we can increase our impact is to refine our intention and our motives by which we're acting on. And from what I see, from my experience and what I see, we need coaches, we need mentors, we need guides, but just not any type of coach or mentor, someone who's really focusing on us internally, right? Dealing with themselves and us at a heart level. And that's where I want to really, talk about Robin Sharma. He gives us a great framework that we all have connected with, either through his teachings, whether it be, his four empires, the health set, the mindset, the heart set, and the soul set. And I really think this is a fantastic way to look at the different dimensions of our lives. I really feel that the leading thought leaders, motivational speakers, the fitness experts, they've given us a lot of great tools and interventions for our health set and our mindset. But I really feel there are very few organizations that are providing practical interventions on developing communities around developing our heart set and soul set in a real relevant and meaningful way. And this is exactly what this organization Upbuild in New York, they're focusing and targeting. They're really targeting on understanding our ego and identifying how that gets in the way of us being our true selves. Now, my 2 very good friends, Hari and Rasnath, they started this organization, Upbuild, 12 years ago when they were monks in the monastery. And they used two specific tools to help in that excavation. The first is the Enneagram. And for those of you that may not know it, the Enneagram is, in my opinion, the most sophisticated personality test out there. And it really helps tell you how people interpret the world and manage their emotions. So they do workshops on the Enneagram. They specifically do one-on-one coaching to help people navigate their unique personality type. There's 9 different ones. I won't get into the details. And then the second tool that they use is ancient wisdom texts and different inspirational philosophical thought leaders. Specifically, they use the wisdom text of Bhagavad Gita, and they use these ancient wisdom texts to serve as a springboard, not just to examine the world around us, but also to examine the world within ourselves. And so I can definitely say it's so rare to find individuals who are so passionate about creating a community that is safe, inspiring, and authentic for a mainstream audience, not for people all walks of life, from the university student all the way up to the executive. And I can say for myself, it really transformed and pushed my boundaries out of my comfort zone to look within myself in a way that I would not have otherwise. And so the are really it's 2 of the most genuine, sincere people. And I guarantee if people are able to connect with their content and the programs they're providing, their life will be transformed. And then the third last message that I want to just share with people is to create urgency and go deep in your life. And I'll just exemplify this by sharing a story, again, from a mentor of mine. One day he was sitting on the banks of the Ganga in India, and he was sitting there meditating, and all of a sudden he saw this hawk, this very large hawk, and it was circling, and it was getting closer and closer to him. And it got closer and closer to the water, and all of a sudden it swooped in, and it pulled out this big fish. And he saw this fish that was really all of a sudden struggling for its life. And he thought, wow, how our life could be changed at any moment. And isn't that the potential situation for all of us? That we can just go on with our lives, and one day that hawk of fate strikes. And for us, that could look like, a calamity with our family, a death in the family, a traumatic experience, some new disease, or even potentially, we don't know when any of us, when life is going to come to any of us. And he learned 2 specific lessons that I wanted to just share. The first one was that we shouldn't be complacent, and that we should take the opportunities we have for our self-development very seriously. And because the greatest enemy that us as spiritual warriors are on is this enemy of procrastination. We can get into the groove of our life day to day, and sometimes we can forget that one day that hawk can come into our life at any moment. And the second lesson that he had observed from seeing the situation was that if the fish had been deeper in the water, the hawk wouldn't have been able to get at the fish. So the lesson that he had learned, that I reflect on often, is to go deep within our practices, whatever it may be, whether it be meditation or journaling or reading or applying wisdom text to our lives, to transport our minds to a deep place within our heart where there's real fulfillment. And whatever situation then we may come upon within the world, it won't really affect us, or it'll affect us much less. Those are the key messages that I want to leave everyone with.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rikin, for sharing some wisdom accumulated through the years. And actually, if we want to know more about yourself and follow you, how to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so if you wanted to get in touch with me, I am happy to. I have a Facebook page There's an Instagram page, Dr Rikin, which I'm just recently trying to get more into social media. So both through my Facebook and Instagram pages. If people wanted to connect with you specifically, I'm happy for you to pass on my email address specifically so people can email me directly. Go ahead, and I'm happy for you to do that.
Sure, I will take care of that, and it will be on the screen.
Yeah, in the future, I'm hoping to have a website, but it's not quite up yet.
Yes, it's on the future plan.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Rikin, for taking the time to share with us the wisdom that you have accumulated, and as well, the two last key points you mentioned about like we should not be complacent and like making full use of the resources we already are aware. And I believe it goes as well with gratitude, to be grateful for what we already have. And and as well, yes, it's really about procrastination. It's something to leave behind. But the thing is, to keep procrastination, we need as well to understand why of what why are we doing the things we want to do. And if we're procrastinating, what is the why behind it? What fear is behind it? So again, thank you so much, Dr. Rikin, for being on board with Connection. And so,
thank you so much. I'm really grateful, Bilitis, for the opportunity again. I hope what we shared will resonate with someone out there. And I really genuinely want to reiterate that I really appreciate what you're doing with this channel. And I'm happy to support and continue to support your endeavors in the future.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rikin. And so so Connection supports Gift a Dream Foundation. And so Gift a Dream Foundation actually has been first created to help children over India and Kenya to access education. However, since COVID started, the focus has changed, and that is why the Gift a Dream Foundation launched the food parcel movement. Did you know that for $2 a day, you could feed a family of 5? So what we're here for is, yes, you can as well make a difference, and you can make a donation. You will see the link attached on the description below. I encourage you strongly to have a look and make a donation, because whatever is the amount, you will still make a difference in the life of these children and family. Thank you so much for following Connection. And again, if you start to like it or you're new to Connection, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and as well to turn on the notification button. Like this, each time there is a new episode, you are the first one to know about it. Thank you so much again, and I see you in next Friday. Thank you.